a varying number of arguments, C and C++ provide variadic functions. Let's get a working copy of variadic.c, and we'll paste this into the working project. And I'll go ahead and maximize this by double-clicking on that tab at the top and scroll down so you can see the whole thing. So you'll notice on line 3, I'm including a header called standardarg.h, stdarg.h. In C++, the equivalent header is c stdarg.h. And of course, this technique works in both C and C++. We're showing the demonstration in C this time. So this file shows two examples of variadic functions: an average function for computing the average of a variable number of arguments, and a message function that actually passes the variadic arguments onto another function called vfprintf, and this is actually how functions like printf are implemented. So starting with the average function, you'll notice on line 7, I declare a variable called AP that's of type VAList. VAList is actually a macro that's used for implementing the variable argument list. Every function that uses a variable argument list must declare a variable of this type and must also call VAStart and VAEnd. VAList, VAStart, and VAEnd are defined in standard arg. VAList is actually a type def. So on line 11, we call VAStart, and this is actually a macro. The first argument is the VAList itself, and the second argument is the last parameter in the parameter list before the ... Now looking at our parameter list, you'll notice that that ... that indicates the variable argument list, and that's actually 3 dots. It's not a single character that represents an ellipsis that you might get as an automatic replacement in a text editor or a word processor. This is actually 3 dots. There's no space between the dots, and these 3 dots must be the last thing in the argument list, and it cannot be the first thing in the argument list, so there needs to be at least one other variable before it. And this is so that VAList can do its magic. And so in VAStart, you'll notice that we pass it that last argument before the 3 dots in the argument list. And this tells VAStart the thing right after that is where the variable argument list begins. In line 13, we get the next argument in the list with VARG, and we give it the VAList variable, and we also give it the type of what that argument is going to be. And that will get returned by VARG. And then in line 15, we call VAEnd. Every VAStart must be matched by a VAEnd. If you don't do that, you may get leaky code. Before we go and run this and test it, I want to show you also this other function on line 19. This is another type of variable argument function. This one is called message, and it actually calls another function called vfprintf and passes it that variable argument list. So here on line 20, of course, we declare the variable of VAList type. On line 21, we call VAStart, and we pass it FMT, or format, which is the last argument before the variadic list. And then on line 22, we pass all of that to the vfprintf function. The vfprintf function is actually how functions like printf are implemented, and it takes the standard out and a format and a variable argument list. And it then prints those results to standard out or to whatever file handle you pass it. And then you'll notice on line 24, there's a matching VAEnd for the VAStart on line 21. And then down in the main function, we call message once with just a message and no variable argument list at all, and that works fine. And then on line 30, we call message and we pass it the results of average, which is its own variable argument list. The first number is the count of arguments, and the next 5 arguments are floating point numbers which get passed to the variadic function. So now let's go ahead and bring this back down to size, and we'll press the big green compile and run button, and you'll see first line is this is a message, and second line is the average of these 5 floating point numbers. And of course, that function gets passed the 5, which is the count of the arguments in the variadic list. So for those times when you need a function that may take a varying number of arguments, C and C++ provide variadic functions.